check this out. I wanted to, we talked about this sort of stuff in stream, and I have little isolated videos with different examples. So I wanted to bring home this point for one specific video, and we're going to kind of expand on this idea. I got the inspiration because I did my last video talking about the Black Widow screenwriter. I believe she's written some other Marvel gigs as well. And she was talking about how she's basically discussing the fact that this is an extension of whether it be screenwriting and the people that she wants to do, to write for, write with. She has her own political and social agendas that she wants to promote, right? And I talked about how she's showing that she's using these characters, using comic book culture, and certainly using the Marvel Cinematic Universe to, it's more so as an extension of, again, her personal activism. The characters are put on the back burner. That's more of a secondary thing. First, it's about, okay, I have this agenda and I'm going to use this as a projection. I'm going to use this to really put my thoughts and stuff out there by way of art. And that in itself isn't anything new. What is new relatively is that people are just so open with it. I also shared a video back in the gap about how Stan Lee was talking about how he always wanted to put social issues underlying the plot. He said he never wanted to make you feel like he was beating you over the head or that it sort of controlled the storyline and the narrative. And I think that's representative of the times. I talked about how 2016 Donald Trump wins the election, and now people are like, really, certainly among art culture, it's not just with the comic book stuff, it's with a lot of different arts in which everybody seems to be wanting to use blue check marks or trying to use this as an extension of their art, as an extension of their activism. And a lot of times it's in opposition to Donald Trump and those sorts of types. And I just don't see it getting any better. It's going to get progressively worse, no pun intended. But that's just where we're at. I've showed many, many, many different examples, so you cannot say this is a conspiracy or something like that. Excuse me. Because I have too many videos referencing and going through some of the exact talking points of some shot callers within the industry, certainly in regards to live action depictions of classic comic book characters. You can't say that I'm just talking out of my ass. You can't say that I'm just making stuff up. Again, you cannot claim that this is some sort of conspiracy. Now, this could have been avoided in the sense that I will say that a lot of comic book fans, as the Marvel Cinematic Universe grew over the last 10 years, a lot of comic book fans that were just wanting good stories weren't really one for the whole political control. Like, it's one thing to have political elements to your storyline. It's another to just put your own personal ideas and beliefs and inject it into a storyline, certainly regarding a character that you did not create. And I tried to tell people that you need to start paying attention. I know we shouldn't have to do that, but just considering the way the cultural shift is, you probably should start paying attention to the ideologies, because they're letting you know now that we have Twitter, to the ideologies of people that are involved in the industry, be it in just a straight print comics, or be it in, let's say, movies. So Hollywood, directors, actors, actresses, writers, in both comic book and in film. Certainly when it comes to comic book material and comic book adaptations, or live action adaptations of comic book characters and classic comic book arcs. I told y'all this because I saw this shit coming a mile away as social media grew, and that art of that virtue signal became just that. And it was more so people that were utilizing like Twitter to put forth their political and social views. So we don't have to speculate anymore. You don't have to wait around for some interview that you have to uncover to see where somebody's at. They're letting you know this, and they're being pretty open about it. And certainly 2016, it got really amplified, where people are just really, really wanting to use this as an extension of their activism. And if you were paying attention to that, you would have saw this coming. But you had guys, and I get it, it's naive, but I understand that they'd be like, well, I don't care. I just want a good story, right? You still get people that say that. I'm like, all right, that sounds good, but you're not, they're not playing by the same rules as you because they don't give a shit. Now I'm reading books and now it's a dead giveaway as far as where they're at politically. It's a dead giveaway. I already know it's a dead giveaway as far as where they are at politically. They're just letting you know exactly where they're at. They're not hiding it or anything like that. They're letting you know exactly where they're at socially and politically. And they're using, in the case of that screenwriter with Black Widow, she's literally telling you this. She was like, look, man, I wasn't even into superhero stuff until I started working with Marvel. Like they're telling you, bro. Like they're telling you, like, this is what I want to do. Now, granted, they could create their own characters and their own universes with their own, ideas that are separate from, let's say, the big two in Marvel or DC. But that will require work. And it's not going to catch on for the most part, simply because a lot of guys that have been funding this industry in one way, shape, or form are not really into that. And they're going to let you know. This is why you saw all those communities that have been, raising, if you will, in the last, let's say, 5 years of people that are just like, look, we don't want this nonsense. And some of those guys are actually creating. That's one thing you can hate on the guys that own that side, on the Comics Gate side, all you want. It doesn't really matter. It's wholly irrelevant. They're at least creating their own characters. So they'll bitch and complain about some of this shit, but you're seeing them create their own shit, and they're making a lot of money off of it. Now that the SJWs could do that. It's not just SJWs. A lot of people wouldn't admit that they're just that. But the guys that certainly are, it seems they're for the most part mainstream leftists that are the ones that are trying to use this as an extension of their personal activism. They could create their own characters. They could. Again, it won't hit, and they're not. Instead, they're hijacking established characters that they didn't create, and then they're putting their political and social views within the storyline and using the character to sort of boost that up. And that's the unfortunate thing where we're at. Marvel Cinematic Universe just got massive. And they didn't get massive because they were giving a shit about social justice or anything like that. That wasn't what happened. But it got big, it got bigger. And as it looks, we're going in this direction of people just using this as an extension of their... it's a cash. They're using it as a cash grab. So you're seeing people that don't give a shit about characters, don't give a crap about comics, that are getting picked up for writers and actors even, and actresses. They don't really give a shit about any of that. They see it as an opportunity and a cash grab, as a resume builder, if you will. So you have them doing that, and then you just have guys that they just don't all around care. They just don't really care. That's not their thing. They didn't create these characters. It's more of they're not stupid though, because they know, okay, instead of creating my own, I can hijack somebody else's legacy and play on that nostalgia and play on that the fact they have that fan base, and then start to develop my own narratives within it. That is, again, just an extension of their political. It's so predictable because it's predictable of their. It's so predictable because it's a representative of their personal politics. I talked about this with Greg Rucka in the recent Lois Lane comic book, which is the latest filth that has been put out there. And how I'm reading, I'm like, hey, I'm willing to bet this writer's a deranged leftist. And we're seeing this, and unfortunately, this is what happened out of seemingly the Trump election and stuff, is that you're seeing even people that have been around, Jerry Conway as well, that weren't always like this, but it just sent them over the edge. And now they're deranged. They're just deranged, bro. But that's where we're at. And that's just what it is. People are using the comic book characters as extensions of their personal politics. And it's unfortunate because a lot of us have grew up liking these characters, loving these characters, seeing them be developed over the years. And in recent years, unfortunately, we're seeing them being used to just prop up people's personal agendas. And they're not hiding it. It's so on the nose. It's not creative or anything like that. And again, instead, and it doesn't make sense. You got people that are admitting, directors and so forth. They're admitting like, hey, we don't really care about the comic book canon or anything like. It's like, why the fuck would you pick up this gig then? What is the point? Why not just create your own side random character, develop that? because they can't. They have to depend on the fact that there's a bunch of individuals that have grown up and loving these characters. So they look forward to it and they will see it just based on that. So they have to piggyback off of that success, largely that a lot of these writers had nothing to do with. It's smart in that sense. I'll give them that, because they can't do the shit on their own. But it's fucked up at the end of the day. They're using it as an extension of their activism. That's just what it is. They're using these characters, these movies that are based on these characters, as an extension of their activism. And if you're not paying attention, I think it's a tad bit illogical for you to act surprised when you see a movie that comes out and you're like, what the fuck is this? All I wanted was a good story. Well, they've been telling you for the last 3, 4, 5 years what their intention is. They've been letting you know. And again, you can just zoom in on their personal thoughts. You don't have to wait around for interviews because they're telling you it online, because they're signaling all day long. And then you got guys like my big head self covering the shit. When they do it, it's not a secret, yo. It ain't a secret. You better start paying attention. You better start paying attention. There's not been no conspiracy when I've said, man, look, they're using this to promote their personal politics, and they're going to use this as a means to funnel that. Oh, you're overreacting. Oh, this, and that. And then it happens. And I get proven right. Again, man.